Hi everyone, Josh here, doing a video on heater core replacement on my lovely wife and occasional camera woman's car. So this one, the heater core has been leaking for a couple of years now. It's been just slightly leaking. She's a fair weather driver, so it doesn't get out much in the cold, so it hasn't been too big of a deal. But now the fan doesn't work anymore. The resistor pack, it's been burnt out for a while, so she only had number 4 for the fan. Well, it stopped working now, and the AC stopped working. So we got a lot of HVAC issues, so I figured I'll just tackle everything all at once and be done with it. So before starting this, I believe the evaporator has to come out, or at least get moved off the firewall, so you're gonna have to make sure your system's evacuated before you start. It's a fairly big job, and you're working around airbags, both the passenger and the driver's side. So if you're not comfortable working around airbags, probably stop this video now and take it somewhere that will. And the other issue is there's a lot of stuff that has to come apart. So you have to be one of two kinds of people. You have to be really good at organization and bagging and making sure you know where all the bolts are, or you have to be really good at puzzles. I'm more of a puzzle guy than the organization guy. So yeah, it should make it interesting. So I'll try and get some good light in here, and I guess we'll kind of start on the one side, we'll go to the other side, do the center, and then hopefully the dash will just fall right out of there, and then we can do the heater core. So let's get started. So I thought I should just touch on tool requirements here. It's been 5 or 6 years since I've done a heater core on one of these. So I'm just kind of going off memory. I've got some deep Allen Torx bits, some deep Torx bits again, and then some triple squares. The only triple square I think is the nut for the steering wheel. And then obviously just your metric socket set, an impact. Another nice thing is a little electric screwdriver of some sort. Makes life a lot easier for the million screws that we're about to take out. So I know my last one I used a little cheap home hardware Ryobi screw gun, and it worked good. It's obviously not with me anymore, but the Snap-on one will suffice, I guess. So yeah, so we'll start taking stuff apart, and hopefully the light and camera doesn't look too bad, and we can actually see what I'm taking apart. So I'm going to try and do the time lapses and stuff a little bit different on this video, so let me know in the comments if you like it or don't like it. I'm going to try and kind of do a voiceover of the time lapse, so then kind of explain what I'm doing, because I think I might be in the way of the camera for a few things. So yeah, just let me know if you like it compared to some of my V10 videos where it was just strictly music and no voiceover. So let's get started here. So now I'm working on getting the steering airbag out. So I've already got the battery unhooked. Just let it sit for a little bit, make sure everything's discharged, and that way the airbag doesn't blow up in your face. So at the 3 and 9 o'clock position, there'll be a little spring or a hole in the back side where you can stick a screwdriver in to get to the spring clips. Just a small flat screwdriver will go in, and you pry up to get the spring, like pull the screwdriver up to get the spring to unclip. There's just a little, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, little tapered spot on the airbag that it clips onto. It's not too bad. You might spend 5 minutes or 2 minutes to getting it apart. Just, yeah, you have to kind of fish around to feel for the spring. So next we're going to get the airbag off. So you can mark the steering column, but there is divots on the steering column and the steering wheel itself, so that way you know the steering wheel's back and center. Next up we got the steering column. So you're going to need some small screwdrivers to get some small screws out. I've already got the steering release, like the extended stuff, that apart. So now you can kind of get some screws out and get the bottom column out, and you kind of work it around the steering or the key switch. So now the clock spring, just a connector along with the wiper stock, a couple of screws that kind of clamps it on there, and then just a bunch of different connectors that are not too bad to get unhooked. I like using a little 90-degree pick to kind of help pop the tab. So there's quite a few. They all only go in one spot, so you don't have to mark them. So next up, we're going to pull the cluster. This has got two connectors on each side, and it's just like a over center latch that kind of holds them on there. So next up, we're going to start pulling some screws, some of many. So we got basically your kick panel, and you've got a sound deadening panel underneath as well, and there's also a steel panel in behind the plastic here. So they're all kind of different size torques, so make sure you have your set handy for this part, and also have your Ziploc baggies sitting around to make sure you can bag them all so you know where they all go. So this has got an aftermarket radio, so I was just trying to figure out where that blue wire went. But so now we're going to start on this side. We're going to get the glove box out. So we got 6 screws, or 3 across the bottom, 3 across the top. And then we've got one hidden one that I'm going to look at right now. Sometimes if the glove box has already been out, people miss that and break it. So your glove box would be able to come out right now. This one hadn't broken yet, so I wanted to try and keep it intact. So I decided let's switch to the center console. So I'm going to start taking that apart. It's not too terribly bad. This one's got the center console cup holders and stuff, so that's a little bit more work as far as getting all the bolts and undone. And this part I freehanded the camera, so I didn't want to kind of have to set up the tripod, so it gets a little shaky here. But just a single 13mm bolt, and out comes the steering or the armrest. It's pretty rough to see what's going on here now, but it's you kind of get the gist of it. Get that rear cup holder out, and get that the slide popped up there. And we got 2 torque siding underneath there that we undo. Once that's undone, you can pull the e-brake handle up and kind of pry the center console out, and then we can do the front one here yet too. So you can get the boot out there, you can get the sound deadening out, and then that front piece should just pop up. So now, let's see, I decided to go to the radio. So this was an aftermarket radio, so it just pops out. If you have an OEM one, you can use radio removal tools, or if you have a debit card, an old debit card or rewards card of some sort, you can slice it up and fit into the little slots in the front side. Depending if you have a single DIN, it'll be 2 slots, or a double DIN should be 4. So here I'm at that hidden screw there, and I ended up breaking it when I loosened it off. So all that work, I guess I had to do it anyways, but that I didn't have to do it right then. So up next, you got all the wiring connectors that go into your switches. And then starting to kind of get stuff loosened up here. Doing the light switch here. You can kind of get in behind for the dimmer switch and kind of compress the holders there. They're not too bad to get popped out. Once you can look at it, you kind of understand what holds it in. So now, let's see what I'm doing here. The steering column, you want to kind of get that sitting loose. So there's just 2 bolts on both sides that kind of get hanging down a little bit. Once that's hanging down, that should just pop out of there. Get the gear shifter out of the way, and apparently get some wiring out of the way. Yep, there we go. There's some holders up top, up by the windshield that it kind of pops out. There we go, it's out. And then out the side you go. So that's definitely, it looks like a bigger job than it actually is. It's not actually too terribly bad. An hour, a couple hours, you can have all that out. So next up, what am I going to work on? I'll start taking some of that ducting apart, I think. So pop the top one out there. I want to get the steering column just hanging by the wiring, so I just wanted to get it off the wiring clips there. Kind of get some of that wiring tidied up because we have to get that crash bar slid back here. So taking off the ground, taking off the side supports, so you can see some bolts there, trying to find any other bolts that I'm missing, which I got this side here yet. Yep, trying to get the radio antenna harness unzip tied from that crash bar so I can get that away without wrecking that harness. So this part I was struggling with. You need a 1/4 inch, basically a screw gun, to get the front piece out, and I didn't have one small enough to fit in there. All I had was a 3/8 drive. So 1/4 inch drive, 1/4 inch bit would work really nice there. So let's see what I'm doing here. I'm doing some bolts, and I'm thinking that I can get the crash bar moving, but I can't because there's a bolt hiding in the wiper cowl yet. So I got all those bolts out from the inside are done. So now let's switch to the wiper cowl. So I got to pull both wipers. So that's just a cheap wiper puller tool. I'll probably throw that at the beginning to make sure that we know, or that everybody knows that you need that. That one's being a bit stubborn, so just a gentle tap with a hammer. Just be careful, you're working around the windshield and you don't want to be prying off the glass or anything like that. So next we're going to get that wiper cowl out of the way, and we're going to get that steering, or not the steering, we're going to get the wiper, transmission and motor out of the way as well. It could possibly stay in if you want to run some swivels and extensions and stuff like that, but I'm not that ambitious, so I'm going to get that out of the way. Well, I guess I gave it a shot, but yeah, get that out of the way. It's nice and easy. Just that single bolt, and now that crash bar should be able to move. Get some more ducting out of the way. So this, you want to be kind of gentle. You have some harness hanging off it and stuff like that, so you don't want to just reef it out. Once the main body harness runs over it, there's your fan. So the heater core, let me set this light down. The heater core is actually right here. So it's tucked in underneath this dash. I guess you'd call it a dash. The rain tray, I guess. The back side of the rain tray. So basically you got to get this harness up out of the way, undo some mounts, drain the coolant, and I guess we'll see if the evaporator and the AC has to get discharged or not. So I guess it's the time we're going to find out here now. You have to take this floor mount off to get that slid back. Just a lot of stuff in the way here. So we'll switch to the engine bay here and get the coolant out of it, and we'll go from there. So we've got the coolant draining. So on the BEW, the heater core connections are in behind there, and the heating box or HVAC box, there's a little flap door. You can just kind of see it there in the bottom. So there'll be 2 flap doors, I think, that we're gonna have to pop open. So I'm gonna get this turbo intake pipe off, and I'm gonna go from underneath and see if we got room. So all this stuff isn't real rocket science to get apart, and it'll definitely be specific to whatever engine you're working on or whatever engine your car has. So taking that top boost pipe off, taking the turbo intake pipe off, the accordion tube going to it, just trying to free up a bit of space to get up in there. So I went underneath to get that bottom clamp. I just cut that out because there wasn't anything special to see. So you're going to have to try and get all the mice and chipmunk nests out of here. And so you're going to want to undo these quick disconnects. You're not going to obviously be able to fit these elbows through the hole there. So it's just the same kind of deal as like this connector over here. You just have to pull the wide side down a bit, and you can see it kind of locks in right there. So I'll try and get this camera set up so we can kind of see it and start going. So it's a little finicky getting in there and getting these spring clips to unclip, but both of these you just pull them down and you'll kind of see they have a bit of a spot where the dog leg kind of locks into, so that way you know it's not clipped into the heater core anymore. And also old O-rings are kind of fairly sticky to the heater core, so it need a little bit of you need to kind of jimmy it a little bit to get it to break free. So here's the two little trap doors. There's one there. Not gonna be able to see it. There's one straight underneath. Just the two smaller trap doors, I guess you'd call them. So just little 10 mils. So I'm gonna pop those two out, and then we'll go back into the inside and see if that HVAC box can move enough. If not, we might have to get into the AC stuff here yet too. So yeah, there's not a chance to get that apart, at least on this car. Moves a little bit, but not near enough, and it's pretty stiff over here where the AC lines go through. I'd rather not break them or cause them to break in the future, so we're gonna evacuate the system and I guess take that apart now. I guess this is a good time to say some of them have split boxes, so there'll be a split right here, so you can actually separate the heater core part from the evaporator part and the fan. I did two, both were late 99, so 99.5 Mark IVs, and they had that split there, so it was just nice and easy. You just split it there, you can shimmy this out and then get that heater core out. Well, it's this one, as you can see, it's all molded together. So I don't know if that was an early model versus a late model split, or they were both base model roll-up window TDIs, whereas this one's at least got power windows and stuff, so I'm not sure what the difference is. So if you know, write it in the comments and I can put in the description what models were what. So let's get the refrigerant out of this and we'll carry on. So I skipped over to the bolt parts here. So you've got the two over here, and then you have your the one hex that holds your AC lines on, and you've got a bolt just above and just below your expansion valve. You have to kind of rip the sound deadening or heat, whatever you want to call it, rip it open a little bit to get to the bolt above and below it. But now nice and loose, so now we're gonna have to get some of these wires out of the way and support this bar up out of the way. I don't really want to take it right out of here. They got a lot of wiring fished through it and stuff, and I've done it before with it in there still, so we'll give it a shot.
We're gonna get that rain or the crash bar pulled out a little bit, and then it's a matter of just kind of getting the box sitting where you need it to have room for the heater core to clear. You just kind of want to be careful because you got the harness hanging off of everything there. So on this style, we've just got the two clips that holds the heater core in. I think the earlier ones were actually bolted in with small screws. So again, just trying to get everything sitting where it needs to be, getting the harness all freed up where it needs to be. Still kind of struggling. And there we go, got enough slack, so out goes the old one. You can kind of see the pink dried up coolant on it. So their new one slides in. So this one, it needed a little bit of foam put on, so it came in the kit. Just put a little bit of foam, just kind of how the old one was. I assume that just depends the manufacturer. So once that slid back in, you can get the heater box sitting where it needs to be. I was just doing this by myself, so you had to kind of hold the box up while getting those bolts started. So I used my light and a screwdriver. The snap-on screwdriver seemed to be the right height to get the nuts and bolts started. So I guess I skipped videoing that because I guess if you can get it apart, you can put it back together, and I don't think the videoing of it really worked really well in the engine bay. But so now we're going to get some ducting ductwork put back on. A lot of that stuff clips back on, and then this big one on the rear side here just gets held in with those two small screws. That one pops on. And here, so we're kind of got the crash bar sitting where it needs to be. So we got the one screw up by the windshield, then we have the one in the rain tray, and then obviously the two on the side, or two per side, that I'm going to be on right there. So you can tighten everything up, get it sitting where it needs to be. And then next we're going to kind of get the harness rerouted how it's supposed to be sitting, along with the cables for the HVAC. Once that's kind of sitting how it should be, you can get your supports put back on for the crash bar. So same kind of deal, just the bolts are removed on both sides. You can put the bar back on. Make sure the wiring again is where it's supposed to be. That's the main thing here on the driver's side. There's a lot of wiring and obviously the HVAC cables as well. You want everything setting how it should be. That way no wiring's pinched or cables are binding, anything like that, because you don't want to have to take everything back apart to get it setting how it needs to be. So right here, I think I'm working on the steering, so like steering shaft, the pivot at the back. That didn't have to come apart. I think it has a slide where it goes into the, basically a joiner where it goes before it goes into the steering rack, so that should have enough slack in there. So you can kind of skip that part. I'm putting the ground back on before I forget about it, because that's not in a fun spot. And then for some reason I decided to put the dash back in right now. I think if I were to do it again, I would at least either get the steering column sitting up a bit, or at least get the wiring with the white clips bolted back on, because they are fairly far up in the dash, and you'll see here at a later point that I kind of have to fight that. So now we're getting the switches put back together where they need to be, the radio harness where it has to be, the HVAC, and the antenna wiring. Gonna get those clips, or the buttons clipped back in there. It's nice with the radio out, all that goes back together nicely. And I believe everything's color coded, so it can only go back, or should only be able to plug in one way, so that way you know where your heated seat and four ways and all that stuff is sitting. So again, just kind of getting that dash sitting where it needs to be. It kind of clips in up near the windshield, so make sure that kind of clips in. So here we're getting the HVAC sitting in, make sure cables are all good, stuff like that. And then bolting that in there now. So now I'm going to fight with the steering column. So you can kind of see those white clips hanging down there a little bit. I would have put those together before putting the dash in. And then the two main bolts that hold that steering column up. Those, I think you probably want to leave them out. That way the steering column hangs down a bit, gives you a bit more room to work with the dash when it's going back together. Especially if you're only one guy, it's a bit of a big and awkward thing to be manhandling yourself. So I think I'm just trying to figure out what screws go where, because I didn't bag anything. And then yeah, getting that steering or the wiring put back up where it needs to be. And that's me fighting the harness there that I mentioned. I'd probably put that together before putting the dash in, but I guess it is what it is. So I believe there's another ground down there that I'm putting back together, and now I'm putting the fuse box back in. Oh, I decided to put the dimmer switch in, I guess, before I forget. Okay, there we go. So there's the fuse box. It just kind of sits back in with the two screws. You get the relay panel, same kind of deal. Get it sitting where it needs to be. Wiring isn't all pinched or stretched, anything like that. Nice long extension on the screwdriver, that way you're not having to ratchet away forever. So now I'm putting some bolts in for the dash, getting everything kind of bolted up solid there. I think that was the bolting up the OBD2 plug. I think that was for the duct for the footwell heating, I think. Not sure what I was doing there. And then there's a screw up top there in behind the dash, the instrument cluster. I've got this blue wire because it's got an aftermarket radio in, so I got accessory power. And then third time's the charm for getting the steel piece in. Get that kind of clipped in where it needs to be. So for some reason I kind of had an issue getting this all lined up again, I guess. I don't know why I struggled so much here, but so the bottom two screws were kind of out a little bit. So it took a little bit of persuasion to get the screws started there. I guess cross thread's better than no thread. I think it ended up going good. So you can see me kind of fighting it there. There we go, there's those bottom two in. We got the top one set in there. So I think we're going to switch to the, get the steering wiper column put together here. So just the same kind of deal, I got a bunch of connectors, and then the clamp bolt just kind of clamps that on there and keeps it still. Find the right key to tighten that up. Once that's good, then we can do the clock spring next. So same thing, just a connector, and then it clips in there nicely. So next we're going to do the instrument panel or cluster. So just got those two over center connectors there. It's a bit of a tight spot working because you don't have a whole lot of slack in the harness, but it's doable. It's definitely worse going out than it is putting it back together. So once that's put in, you got the two screws that go in the bottom. Once they're put back in, you can put the top cover, I guess, on. It just kind of clips into the instrument panel there. Now we can get the bottom one setting where it needs to be. I ran into a bit of an issue the first couple tries here. You need to make sure these screws that are facing the camera here, those ones right there, you need to make sure they're actually lined up, because if you set the screw in and they're not lined up with the hole, it'll just kind of fall in there into nothingness. So you gotta kind of pop those back out, so they're a little bit tricky to get lined up. But got those on. Got the one screw there. Kind of get that clip back together. And with the two screws that are way up in there, you need to make sure you got a long narrow screwdriver. That one's definitely not it. There we go. So you just get that bolted down tight. Got one on each side there. So up next is the steering, maybe? Oh no, the little rubber handle for the column adjust. Here's the steering wheel, so it just sits in there. Make sure it's engaged to the clock spring, and then you can bolt that down in. Then up next is the airbag. Get the two, or just the connectors to plug in, and then just set the airbag in there and just give it a nice little tap, and then it's locked in. So now we're going to do the glove box. So we're going to get the sound deadening set back in where it needs to be. I think we're going to try and find which screws we need, and then we're going to set the glove box in position. There we go. Got 3 screws across the bottom, 3 across the top. And then the one hidden one that I tried so hard to make sure it didn't break, it was already broken, so that's I left that one out. There we go. That side panel, is going to clip it in. So now we're going to do the center console and the cup holders. Get that set in there. Get the sound deadening kind of pushed back in where it's supposed to be. Gonna get the cup holders slid in here now. It's a bit more of a steady camera work here, so you can actually see what's going on here. Got the inspector checking on up and make sure everything's going well. So that was just me putting the 2 screws in at the back. Now that panel clips in, and then the rear cup holder can go on. It clips in. Cup holders can go on. Just that single bolt kind of holds it on there. And the side panel, I think it works the best to have the seat all the way back and the back setting all the way back as well. There we go. That's just kind of the same kind of deal. Clips in there. Now we got the plastic surround. I'm gonna set that in there. I think the You'll take that back off to put the pedal sound deadening piece in, I think now. Yep, take that off, you pop that in there first, and then you can get the plastic piece, the knee support in there. Get that bolted down. A couple more screws for the center console. And that's it for the interior. So now, oh, I guess one more there. Perfect, so now you can get the wiper put back together, you can get coolant put into it, all that good stuff. I skipped a lot of the engine based stuff because that's kind of depends on your specific vehicle, but it's not too complicated. And then you can get coolant back in, you can get your refrigerant put back in, and then you should be able to enjoy your heat and AC again. So thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. You can like and subscribe and check out some more of the videos. I'm hoping to do some more on my V10 TDI Touareg here shortly. So again, thanks for watching, and hopefully this helped.